Hello, everyone. John Bruna here. Thanks so much for joining me for the Daily Quote. Let's go ahead and get right to it. Our past does not need to dictate our future. We are not our past. We are only shaped by it. Our past is filled with experiences and lessons learned that can either limit or inform and nourish our future. How much of how we think of who we are is just based on some past experiences, some beliefs about ourselves that actually are not true. There's a very powerful story about an elephant. You sit here and see throughout Southeast Asia images of an elephant that is chained to a small spike in the ground. You used to actually see those at sort of circus events in our country. I used to have that image in my classroom when I taught high school, and I had an elephant that was tied to a stake in the ground. And I had a question. Why doesn't the elephant free itself? It's strong enough. It can pull that out, walk away. Well, the lesson of the story, the parable of this elephant tied to a stake in the ground, is really based on the idea that this elephant was trained at a small, when the elephant was small, sorry. When the elephant was a baby, it was chained to this stake in the ground. And it was not strong enough to free itself. It would pull and tug, it would hurt itself. In truth, there's actually these hurt boxes that they train elephants in and fundamentally break them when they're young. And so at an early age, that elephant learns that it's not strong enough and it hurts to even try. And so the story goes, the elephant becomes much bigger, stronger, capable of breaking out, capable of being free. But its mind has learned that it can't, so it doesn't even try. Likewise, in our life, there are so many things that we learned about ourselves when we were younger. A personality takes place, a belief system about ourselves, things that we felt we didn't do well at, whether it's in school or sports or in drama or writing, how smart we are, how funny we are, whether we're a people person or not a people person, whether we are witty or not witty. All of this has been shaped through our childhood, and we bring it into our adult life where we may be much more capable than we know simply because we don't even try. We've carried beliefs about ourselves throughout our lives, and why would you check? You already know. And so in my classroom, the journey through the year would be to tug on some of these chains that have limited us, some beliefs about ourselves that are no longer true, maybe never were true, and test them. And so we had free the elephant cards, and every time a student at some point challenged themselves in some way, and they would get a free the elephant card. And the journey would be to free ourselves from some of the limitations and belief systems we have about ourselves. And so the invitation here is to recognize that all of us are carrying around beliefs and limitations about ourselves from our past that fundamentally are not true today, if in fact they ever were. A very simple one in my life was, I am not a morning person. That, for so much of my life, was the hardest thing I did all day. It was something that I really struggled with, even, some of I'm a person in recovery for 40 years now, but in my early recovery, it was really difficult. I would have to set two alarms. I'd set them across the room, and sometimes I would hit doze and still go back to sleep. There was this physiological struggle I had. But a funny thing happened. One day my boss said, "You're late to work one more time, you're fired." And it's amazing how that inspired me to get up. And later years when I entered the monastery and became a Buddhist monk, lived in India where, you know, days start at 5 a.m. I became a morning person, go figure. And today I actually generally wake up at 4 a.m. So even something as simple as that, morning person, not a morning person. Uh, some of us think of ourselves as not a people person. Well, how are you with your friends? Are you a people person with your friends? Oh, well, maybe I am more so. An introvert, except when I'm with my friends in a comfortable environment, then not so much. But maybe there's times in my life I'm more comfortable being introverted. Maybe there's times in my life where I've been more outgoing. A lot of people have this big fear of public speaking. That's a huge fear. It's one of the biggest ones in our culture, and uh, and it limits people to think about what people may think about them. I was extremely shy, very introverted, incredibly insecure in my life, and the thought of me doing what I'm doing today, unimaginable. But it simply came over many years of learning to just share authentically about who I am and what my struggles are and learn from others and mostly an important desire to be helpful. So right here, today we're doing the daily quote. And you may notice there's really nothing fancy about my videos or lighting. Actually, I have this background here, which is not my home. It's a background I use because I travel a lot and often have just some barren wall behind me, and I thought this would be nicer. But I'm not sitting here thinking or worrying about what you may think. My motivation is, can I be helpful? And my inspiration is to offer some of the wisdom that has been offered to me that has helped my life. And I do hope that each and every day you find some of these quotes, some of the lessons helpful, and today specifically, that you recognize you're not your past and you're always in a state of becoming. And you get to be an active participant in who you become. And it's so important to challenge some of the beliefs and limitations that we believe about ourselves that may not actually be true, may never have been, and discover your untapped potential that's available when we stretch ourselves and test ourselves and discover that resiliency that we have, that capacity that's now available to us. Hope you find this helpful.